It's not fear of failure. It's fear of being seen broke. Financial avoidance isn't what you think it is. You keep telling yourself you're afraid of failing, but that's not quite it. The truth is uglier than failure. You're not avoiding failure. You're avoiding being seen. By anyone. As someone who doesn't have it together. Before we get into it, if you're someone who's been avoiding your own numbers, hit subscribe. This channel breaks down exactly why smart people stay stuck with money and what actually fixes it. Section 1. The Misdiagnosis. Most people who struggle with money believe they have a fear of failure. It's the explanation that feels the most respectable. Fear of failure sounds ambitious. It sounds like something high achievers deal with. Fear of failure has a business book quality to it. Noble, almost admirable. It lets you tell yourself a story where you're just cautious, just careful, just waiting for the right moment. It's the kind of explanation you could say out loud at a dinner party without flinching. But financial avoidance rarely starts with fear of failing. It starts with fear of being watched while you fail. There's a difference between not wanting to lose and not wanting anyone to see you lose. And if you're honest with yourself, it's usually the second one. You can lose quietly and feel almost nothing. But lose in front of someone, a partner, a parent, a stranger at a dinner table, and it feels like a different event entirely. Same loss. Completely different weight. That weight is the real thing you've been avoiding. And once you notice that weight, you start to see it everywhere in your own behavior. Section 2. What you're actually avoiding. Think about the last time you avoided checking your bank account. Were you afraid of the number? Or were you afraid of what the number would say about you? That's the real question. Because a number is just data. Data doesn't have an opinion of you. It doesn't remember what you spent it on, and it doesn't judge you for the mistake 3 months ago. It just sits there, neutral, waiting to be looked at. But shame does judge. And shame is the thing quietly running your financial life from the background. Avoiding the budget isn't about the budget. Avoiding the conversation with your partner isn't about the conversation, it's about the moment right before. The split second where you imagine being seen as someone who doesn't have it together. That imagined judgment is louder than any real number could ever be. You could open the app right now. It would take 4 seconds. But those 4 seconds feel like walking into a room where everyone already knows what you did. That's not fear of failure. That's the fear of exposure. And exposure fear doesn't care whether anyone is actually in the room. It reacts the same way whether the audience is real or imagined. Section 3. Why shame feels safer to avoid than face. Shame convinces you that hiding is safer than knowing. That's the trick. Not knowing feels uncomfortable, but it doesn't feel humiliating. Knowing, and then being seen knowing, feels humiliating. So your brain makes a trade. It trades long-term clarity for short-term protection. You stay foggy on purpose. Not because you're lazy and not because you don't care, because somewhere along the way you learned that being seen as not having it together was more dangerous than actually not having it together. That belief didn't come from nowhere. It came from somewhere in your past, a comment, a comparison, a moment where money and self-worth got tangled together and never came apart. Maybe it was a parent who treated a bad month like a character flaw. Maybe it was a moment of public embarrassment that never fully left you. Maybe it was simply growing up in a house where money was never discussed calmly, only in tension or silence. Wherever it came from, your nervous system filed it under one rule. Being seen as broke is worse than being broke. And once that rule is in place, avoidance isn't a bad habit. It's a survival strategy, one your brain thinks is protecting you, even as it quietly makes everything worse. The tragedy is that the strategy works exactly as designed. It protects you from the discomfort of being seen at the cost of ever actually fixing what's underneath. Section 4. The cost of confusing shame with failure. Here's why this misdiagnosis matters. If you think your problem is fear of failure, you try to fix it with confidence. You try pep talks, you try discipline, you try just do it energy. None of it works because you're treating the wrong condition. Fear of failure is solved by taking action and risking an outcome. Money shame is solved by something completely different, by removing the audience. Even if that audience is imaginary, even if the only person watching you check your account is you, you can't discipline your way out of shame because discipline assumes the problem is willpower. Shame isn't a willpower problem. It's a safety problem. Your mind protecting you from an exposure that, in most cases, was never actually going to happen. No one is watching you open your banking app. No one is grading your spreadsheet. No one is keeping score the way you imagine they are. The audience you're performing for exists almost entirely in your head, and it's been running the show for longer than you realized. That's why motivation alone never sticks. It's aimed at the wrong target. Section 5. The Reframe. Once you separate the two, something shifts. You stop needing to have it together before you look at your numbers. You stop needing the story to be flattering before you're willing to hear it. You can open the account and see a bad number without that number becoming a verdict on your character. A number is not a character reference. It's a snapshot. Nothing more. And snapshots can change, but only after you're willing to look at them. The people who turn their finances around aren't the ones who stopped being afraid. They're the ones who stopped needing an audience's approval before they'd let themselves know the truth. That's a smaller shift than it sounds like, and it's also a much bigger one. It doesn't require a personality change. It just requires taking the audience out of the room. It was never really about failure. It was about shame. And shame convinces you that hiding is safer than knowing. The moment you can name that, the fear stops running the show. You get to look at the numbers as they are, not as a verdict on who you are. That's the whole shift. Not more discipline, not more confidence. Just less shame standing between you and the truth. If this video helped you see your own patterns a little clearer, subscribe for more on the psychology behind why smart people stay broke. And if this is the video where it finally clicked, the next one in this playlist goes deeper into where that shame gets planted in the first place.